I was shocked when my 9-year-old son's teacher called me to discuss a note she gave her. My son had always been more of a shy, quiet kid, so it was a huge surprise when I was told that I needed to discuss the note he had given to his teacher. When I received the call, I was headed to the grocery store to buy yogurt for my kids. I answered the no-name call and asked, "Hi, who may I ask is speaking?" The friendly voice on the line replied with a, "Good afternoon. I'm your son's teacher, Mrs. Harrison. I was just calling to see if you could come and pick up your son from my office." I raised an eyebrow, feeling suspicious, and asked, "Why is my son in your office at this time? Shouldn't he be on the school bus?" Mrs. Harrison coughed and awkwardly agreed, but said, "He had to stay behind because we were discussing a note he had written and given to me, as well as the item he gave. I would appreciate if you could come by." My heart started beating uncontrollable the more I thought about what my son could have done that required a parent. I told his teacher that I would be there in 20 minutes and hung up. I placed the yogurt back in on the refrigerated shelves and started running back to my car, pushing past people rudely while apologizing. I hopped into the car and anxiously drove above the speed limit all the way to my son's school. I grabbed the nearest parking and walked into the school with shaky legs. I walked down 2 hallways before finding Mrs. Harrison's office. I knocked on the door and let myself in, asking, "Is my son okay? What did he do?" I rushed over to my son and sat beside him, across the table from Mrs. Harrison. I checked to see if my son had been crying or was injured, but no matter how long I inspected, he seemed perfectly fine. Mrs. Harrison smiled at me and said, "Sorry for being so vague about the situation. I wanted you to see the note for yourself." She handed over a folded piece of paper labeled, "To Mrs. Harrison from Joshua." When I read through the note, I stopped for a second and looked over at Mrs. Harrison in disbelief. She nodded and asked me to read it out loud if I could. I obliged and read, "Dear Mrs. Harrison, I know I don't talk a lot in your class. I'm shy, but I learn a lot from you. I really like that you help us and give us good grades. Every day is fun with you. You're my favorite teacher, so I really hope you fight cancer. Oh yeah, here's a lucky charm my sister gave. It worked for me before when my parents bought me a Nintendo Switch on my birthday. Please take it with you for your fight. Love, Joshua." In the middle of the reading, Mrs. Harrison and I began crying and using up all the tissues from her tissue box. My son looked down at his feet and apologized, saying, "I'm sorry. I didn't know I wasn't supposed to do that. I just wanted to say something before Mrs. Harrison goes away." I hugged my son and gave him a big kiss on the cheek, letting him know that we were proud of what he did and that because of him, Mrs. Harrison was going to come back to teach him again soon. His face brightened up at my words, and he ran over to hug his teacher. When we got home from his school, I made sure to let him play on his Nintendo Switch all afternoon until his bedtime.